I want to welcome everyone. I'm Lisa Van Ostrand. I'm the president of the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, and we are so honored to be presenting this series on healing the racial divide. And it's just an incredible opportunity that we're just, again, very excited about. And I just wanted to just have a couple of reminders at the beginning. As I already said, it's being recorded. I also just wanted everyone to know that this is a circle of healing. It's not meant to be a process group. This is a circle where theoretically we would all have the opportunity to speak. Unfortunately, because of time restraints, we probably will not all be able to do that. But it's an opportunity for people to speak and for us to deeply listen to each other with values of mutual respect and honor. I believe in the goodwill and the heartness of all those who are present in this call. And so if we disagree with someone's viewpoint, let's not shame or blame, but rather as we speak from our own experience, in this way we will educate and inform each other so that we all have opportunities to learn different viewpoints and to see where we might be holding our prejudices, biases. And so the desire is to be brutally honest with all that's here, with all of our feelings, and yet also be mindful and respectful of others' views. So by, again, presencing these worldviews and listening to other stories, that allows all of us to learn and to open ourselves up to other possibilities and viewpoints. And this is not a time to plan for solutions. I know for myself, it was like, okay, what are we going to do? Here's how we're going to plan things. Here's how we're going to solve this. But before that, first, we must deeply listen to each other's stories. And out of that, as we deeply listen, the solutions will arise. And so the purpose of this part one series is for our Black students and alumni to share their feelings and experiences of living in a world where there is systemic racism. And we will, after they have shared, we will invite other students to share their stories of racism. And just please stay on mute until you're called on to share. And I first want to introduce Patricia Powell. She is a Barbara Brennan graduate from 2008, and I'm so happy to have the pleasure of working with her on this series. She is an energy medicine practitioner and a professor of literature and creative writing at Mills College in Oakland, California. She's the author of several novels, including The Pagoda and The Fullness of Everything. Her latest work, which is in progress, is about a woman reclaiming her African spiritual legacy. And so I introduce you to Patricia Powell.
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to see all of you. There's always a point in life when the need for deep change is ignited. That inflection point happened for me when I saw the video of Mr. Floyd's murder. I thought, this madness has to stop. I thought, I have to do something to stop this madness. And so after Lisa wrote me, telling me of her desire to bring Black students together to share their experiences, I decided to create a series that would further contextualize this moment, to show you how racism impacts every aspect of our lives, our drinking water, our garbage pickup, whether or not we have electricity, where we live, the value of our real estate, whether or not it's safe to walk down the street, to go for a jog, to bird watch in the park, to drive your car, to live. Racism impacts every school system in our country and decides whether or not our students can read well, can stay in school, can achieve. Our places of worship are some of the most segregated spaces in the country. Racism impacts what we eat every day and the freshness of our meat and vegetables, how much we earn, whether or not we are hired, the kinds of jobs we are hired to do, how much wealth our family has, our friendships, our dreams at night, and the color of the boogeyman that haunts us, even our very thought, because racism thrives in our cultural and collective psyche. I also wanted you to see how the privileges of whiteness help to keep racism intact. Oppression needs blindness to survive, and there's a way in which our privileges, and those privileges can be heterosexual privileges, or religious privileges, or wealth privileges, but there's a way in which our white privileges can keep us blind and unconscious and unaware. And my intention for the Healing the Racial Divide series is to invite you to become aware of the blinders that are in the way of our freedom and to remove them. If we can heal the racial divide, we can dismantle poverty. If we can heal the racial divide, we can dismantle homophobia. If we can heal the racial divide, we can heal the earth. The systems of oppression thrive on our blindness and our complacency. My friends, let us no longer sit quietly. Let us act. We're healers. We know firsthand the freedom that personal healing and transformation bring. Let's take our work into our communities. And just know that the minute you step into this collective healing work, your allies will come. They will come from the physical realm and from the spiritual realm. They will lift you up. They will find you a platform. They will give you strength and the integrity and the humility and the courage and the vision and the voice and the love that you will need to create harmony and justice and freedom and balance in the world. Remember, we are members of the community of the sacred human heart. We must find our ways to be in right relationship with each other. We must find our way back to love. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. And now I'd like to introduce the rest of the panel. I saw her on and then I didn't see her, but we'll find her. Melody Allen. She is a graduate from BBSH 2006 and a Pacifica Graduate Institute from the Pacifica Graduate Institute as well. She resides in Houston, Texas. She has a psychotherapy practice where she works with families, individuals, and couples. And additionally, she's the former co-director of the North American Systemic Constellation Conference, which is based on the work of Bert Hellinger. Her practice integrates psychotherapy and healing work.
Hello.
Hi. Okay. Ladine King is a graduate from BBSH in 2006. Ladine graduated from Duke University with a bachelor's in science, and she also earned her master's in educational leadership. She's a coach and a facilitator of individual and organizational transformation, specializing in the facilitation of race-based dialogue, training in energy medicine to support the transformation of grief and consciousness. Ada Robinson is a BBSH graduate from 2002. She's also a graduate of advanced studies and a Brennan integration practitioner and former PS1 teacher. Ada is the founder and director of the Village of Natural Teaching. She's a 20-year living foods lifestyle practitioner and trainer. She does journey through consciousness workshops, and she's also an ordained pastor of the Spiritualist Church. Haruna Suma is a BBSH graduate from 2002, also our advanced studies and our Brennan integration practitioner program. Haruna holds degrees in psychology, mental health counseling, as well as marriage, family, and couples therapy. He's senior faculty and he's currently dean of the 4th year. So please, for those of you that are in the public and may not know, we express our appreciation just by waving our hands. So please give me a warm welcome to our panel who has graciously agreed to share their experiences. Thank you so much. So this is meant to be very free form in this first part one. And so I invite our panel, some questions you may want to consider answering is, what forms of race-based trauma and other forms of trauma have you experienced, your ancestors or your people, that you would like to share? And then a second question, what would you like people to know about the effects of racism? And again, you know, feel free to share as you wish. Those were just some potentially questions that you might want to consider answering. And so now I open it up to our panel.
Okay, well, I guess I can just jump in there. Okay, why not? So what I can say is I can speak more collectively, I think, rather than just what I've experienced. But what I know and what I have read and been exposed to is that racism is a really big conglomerate of a lot of different things. So, for example, in what's happening in the Black Lives Matters movement is that Black people, specifically Black people, not just all people of color, but Black people specifically have been, I guess, marginalized in this particular culture in the United States of America, as well as the world, but I can only speak intimately about America. So what I know the race has been through in America for sure is slavery, segregation, Jim Crow, mass incarceration, educational disparities, which had to do more with the legacy of slavery around Black people being not allowed to get proper education, including reading and writing. There was suppression around voting. And all of that has led to economic disparities, educational disparities, and a lot of ills that now affect the Black person being integrated on a level playing field to what white America has experienced. I don't experience that as Black people being lesser than, but I do experience it as there have been some ways I think that white privilege has allowed the white community to have maybe a head start in a sense in some of these areas. So the disparities have kind of gone on, but some of them were not based on, how can I say it? It's not about superiority anything or about white supremacy necessarily, but it was the way the legal system operated. So Black people were held back legally from a lot of these systems. So sometimes Black people are just coming into this idea of generational wealth or, generations of being college educated, generations of, intellectual wealth based on their own, I guess, desire to extract that information from the collective. So I think when we talk about race, we're not just talking about one singular thing. We're talking about how certain mentalities or hierarchies or legal systems have kind of made some people feel excluded, but also not just made them feel excluded, were legally excluded for certain systems. And because of that, here we are with all these inequities that create a lot of rage in the community. So I just want to throw that out, that it's so many things. It's, mass incarceration, which means that, more Black males are put into our our jails or into our legal system, maybe rightfully accused, maybe wrongfully accused, maybe having harsher sentencing, not being able to afford proper legal representation. There's financial inequities because, in the fabric of this country, Black people worked for no wages, at least in slavery and then the Middle Passages. So there's a lot of economic disparity. Then there's educational disparity, which is based on not being allowed an education, which, now we can, but we've missed a lot of generations of having that. And so many more things in that. So I just maybe want to throw that out there and then maybe have somebody jump into that.
And just to be transparent, this is Ladine. I'm just kind of waiting until the other panelists go, and I can share more about why I'm doing that later. But I'm just kind of waiting for you all to enter the space, and then I will.
I find it such a hard topic to talk about. Um, it is both systemic and it is also just deeply personal, deeply wounding. I'll tell a story of an event that happened a few years ago. I was looking for a therapist. I was looking for a trauma therapist, um, and I found a woman in my neighborhood in Berkeley, California, where I live, and she lived about half a mile away. And I decided to walk to her house, and so I arrived and I rang the doorbell, and she looked at me and she said, "Get away from here. I don't have any money to give you. Get away from here. Get away at once." And I was so stunned that I just couldn't move. I just didn't know what to do. And she kept telling me to get away. And finally I said, "But I have an appointment with you." And she said, "Oh, are you Patricia?" I said, "Yeah." And she sort of backed up. She said she was sorry. She invited me in. I went in. I don't even remember what we talked about for that hour. I think I was still stunned. Um, I made another appointment to see her. I think I was on automatic. I think I was just kind of falling down in myself. I walked home. I was telling my partner about it. She wanted us to go back there right away. I said no. Maybe a month later, I wrote this woman. Maybe a week later, I told her why I wasn't coming back to the therapy session and what it felt like. But you know, this is what it can be.
I guess I can jump in. I was born in Arkansas. Okay. And as a child, I had to go through going to school way in a different neighborhood other than what we went through. We had to go past the schools where there were white children. And we had friends that lived across the road because that's the way the laws were written. We live on one side of the road and people that's white live on the other side of the road. And we could play together until it was time to go to school. And then you could not. But through life, because as a child, you don't realize what's going on. But through my life, it started in school. Shut up, little girl, you can't read. Okay. So those are the things that get embedded in children by those, even if they don't have any more in their pocket, their house is no better than yours. Children are taught that they have privilege if they come from a white body. If they're in a black body, they're not equal to anyone. They can't do anything. And if you put that in a child's head, they cannot function because this is what they're told. And so this whole United States is divided. I don't care where I have gone and how nice the people appear to be. You're going to find those in there that if they believe that you're going to take something from them, okay, that's what people that perceive that they have privileges. They will not, if you look like you're moving. I've been told that I wasn't college material by a teacher. She says, oh, you need to take a different route because you're not college material. I've been told all of these things, and my children, you see, I have children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and so they come through the same thing, but theirs is just a little bit different because we put some sugar on it. But the laws are designed to separate. They started when people were supposed to be free. There was nothing they could do, but they wanted people to be slaves. So they design laws to keep Black people in despair, not able to work. And if they work for a little bit of money because they still are considered slaves, not equal. Not because someone is being mean, that's the way the laws are written. and they are used by those that have this privilege. You can't drink water out of this fountain because you are black. Okay, men, people will say a black man is about to rape them. I just read an article that says, okay, this man is minding his business, and someone get caught doing, they're gonna blame him because nobody's gonna ask a question about if he did it. They already assume that he did it because his skin is black, and that happens. I should not have to sit up and worry when my son go out of the house, but that's what happens to people of color. And if we are together as people, a divided house can't stand. So this house is divided. Even if some of us climb a ladder, because we have to fight like hell to get somewhere. So we climb this ladder, go to this white school, and people have said to me, you can't live here, right here in this place. You cannot live here. You're black. And I had to make sure they know, how do you know what you're doing? Because I went to this school that you said I needed to go to get what I needed, so I can do anything you can do. But we can't get away with that, because in the system where you work, you go and somebody can walk in, and if you don't train that person to do your job, you're in trouble, and then you're gone. My father was a brakeman for the train, and he worked for years on this job. But then there came economical downslide, and people were looking for jobs. So this young white male who knew nothing about brakemen and firemen on a train, but yet they wanted him to train this man, and then this man have his job and he has to leave. Those things are painful for the people that have to live through them, and it's more people living through it. Now we got people, I'm the first generation in my family to be able to go to college. Okay. The younger people walk out and they can go to college, but the people before them, their foreparents paved the way. And they went through so much. And that's why I say to my children, do not forget from where you come, because that's what is going on now. People have forgotten. They feel like we all equal, and we are, because God didn't create no mess and didn't create you with privileges and this person without privileges. But since we are in that place, we are going to have to work to bring unity. Because if you don't have unity, we will not have a country. Because it deteriorates when there's negative going on in the world. And this United States is the worst. And I've been in other countries. It is really very, very harsh. You can talk and be together, but one of the things you cannot do, you can't take away that you were born and how you are treated. Someone telling you where you can live, where you can work, how much money you can make, it's not okay. So that's where we are, and that's why we all have to come together. If we're gonna have this country and we're gonna have a balance in our lives, all of us. The white people have to realize that they are not the only privileged people in the world, and they have to know yourself. You have to be able to look at how you respond to another. You know, I have all kind of clients, but I respond to all of them as they're human, because we're all part of the human race. It's not one person any different from another. So I will rest with that. Thank you for listening.
So I promised Patricia that I would go last. Okay. But I'm gonna ask a couple of questions for you guys to sit and think about. Isn't it amazing how well spoken all of our panelists are? Anybody notice that? If you have, please put your reaction, thumbs up or clap your hands, whatever, so that we can. It's amazing how well spoken they are. Yeah. Isn't it amazing how their stories are pretty much the same? What's the reaction there? Okay. So I'll leave it there for now, and then I'll come back and I'll give you my response to your reaction.
And thank you, Haruna, for letting me know that you and Patricia made that agreement prior to. So I'll honor that and step into the space now. Good afternoon. Aloha. It's good to see some of you who are familiar. Melody, my classmate, I graduated the same year. Sister Patricia, who was just a year behind, really happy about and proud of you for creating this, having been given the invitation. Haruna, you were also at school kind of overlapping with us. And of course, Mrs. Ada Robinson, who I cannot say enough about. And there is some feeling here. And a part of the feeling is the anxiety at having this conversation in this white space, overwhelmingly white space. The questions asked at the start are, you could write a gazillion theses on those questions. So I think about how do I enter? And a part of my waiting was for me, and there's no right or wrong here from where I'm sitting in this moment, and I was waiting for my elder, because I give way to my elder. But I also don't want that to be a forcing. It's an honoring that she goes first. And I just want to presence my family, who I have pictures of here. And I'll show you if you'll indulge me. So that's my grandfather, John King, and my Nana, Amanda King, and that's me in the middle. He is the man in my life who taught me what unconditional love is. This is my Nana, my paternal grandmother, my Aunt Pat, and this is my family before I existed, my immediate family. And interestingly, I took this, because this is in my office, and this is actually my family at my BBSH graduation. And I didn't think about that until I brought the picture. So I'm seeing some of my teachers here. Grateful to see some of you. So I was hearing you say, Lisa, you know, calling us to deeply listen to each other's stories. And I'm appreciating the parameter that's been set that Black voices will be centered, because when Black voices are not centered, white takes over. And that's sociologically patterned. So I'm appreciating that parameter that will promote hearing even when it's uncomfortable, particularly when it's uncomfortable. And you called for brutal honesty. And what came up for me is I'm not sure you really understand what you're asking for in that. I have, for much of my life, gotten in trouble for being too honest. Maybe it's the Jersey in me, maybe it's the Black girl in me, I don't know. But another part of me waiting was that I'm aware that I am the lighter sister in the context of race. And as such, I get goodies that my darker brothers and sisters and aunties and aunties don't get. And I am often given favor. So to interrupt that pattern, I make a concerted effort to yield the space to those who are darker. So before I talk about what institutionalized racism is in my life, because I'm going to personalize that, what is race? And race is a social and political construction. It is not biology. It is sociology and it is politics. And it was created in order to maintain a power structure. So there was no white race in the beginning of this country. White was constructed for a particular purpose, and that was to give advantages to those who were white and to deny access to those who were not white. So under that circumstance, who wouldn't want to be white? I mean, I would. If you got to be white to get goodies, who doesn't want goodies? So you have people petitioning the Supreme Court of the United States saying, hey, I'm white, because if I'm white, I get to be a citizen, I get to vote, I get to own land. And if I'm not white, I am denied those inalienable rights. And so I can't understand institutionalized racism until I understand what race is, and that race was constructed as white and other. So while we are centering Black voices in this series, and I appreciate that, the boxes have shifted over time to include Asians, Latinx or Hispanic, bi, multiracial, and all of that is done intentionally to perpetuate a power structure. Because as Elder Ada said, a divided house cannot stand. And if I am white, more often, I don't even understand that I am privileged. And that is predictable. Wherever I am dominant in my identity, whether it's right-handed versus left-handed, whether it's Christian versus all the other possibilities, whether it is the traditional gender spectrum, sexual orientation, wherever I am dominant, I have the luxury to not pay attention, to not see that I get goodies. So for white people, it becomes imperative, if you are to be anti-racist, to understand what it means to be white. Because I'm clear what it means to be white, because I ain't it. And I've been taught throughout my life that I need to be it in order to be okay, in order to be so well-spoken, as Brother Haruna said. And I imagine you'll deal with that one later, so I won't mention it. And so there is anti-Blackness in every racial category. So while I am Black, I racially identify as a Black woman. My mother was Chinese American from Hawaii, and she was disowned for marrying my father because he's Black. There is anti-Blackness within indigeneity. There is anti-Blackness within Hispanicness or Latinx, right? So I appreciate the centering of Black because Black is the most marginalized, and it is a color, but it's also a culture, and it's also a consciousness. So while it begins at the color level, it's more complicated than that. And a part of why I came to Brennan was because I felt broken. And as you can tell, I'm highly intellectual. And so when Lori Keene first came up to me that first night, and I'm sure I was floating on the ceiling, okay, and she greeted me and asked me why I was here, why I was there. And I was very much in my intellectual space because I've learned that's how I defend. That's how I am taken seriously, and how I'm just not a nigga, right? I'm intelligent and I'm articulate. And so I led with that. And then I imagine she was doing what we learn at school, and helping me go deeper. And finally, I shifted from my head into my heart, and I just said, I feel broken. And I want to be whole. And so my first year, I remember we did the, role plays of the character structures and the wounding. And so I remember on that 5th week with Rigid, and they made us get on the line. And they were yelling at us, get on the line, get on the line. You remember this melody? No, I remember. And
remember, I'm schizoid. I probably left the room.
How about that? How about that? So I'm on the line and the teachers are yelling and I'm bawling and I am paralyzed because I will not move off the line. And I'm really having an emotional reaction and I won't move. And I see some of my classmates yelling back at the teacher. And that's like not even a possibility in my head. Like, you don't yell at authority. Like, what? Like, that's not even possible. Okay. And people are being combative and I'm just standing there crying. And finally, one of the teachers whispers in my ear from behind, you can get off the line. Never occurred to me. And I didn't get off the line. And what does my being a Black woman have to do with that? What does me being a descendant of enslaved Africans who couldn't move have to do with that? And I didn't even recognize until after we debriefed that, how often I don't even recognize I have choice. Because it is a privilege to have choice. That's rooted in privilege. So fast forward, because I've been talking for a while, fast forward to my 3rd year. And that's when the process supervision got larger group size. And I remember the dean at the time, and I evidently was deep inside myself. And she looked at me in front of everyone and said something like, you really know how to go deep inside yourself. And it didn't feel loving to me. It didn't feel loving. It wasn't full taunting, but it wasn't loving. It wasn't fully loving. And what I wanted to say, and what white lady does you being in my face have to do with me being this deep inside myself? How about that? But of course, I would never say that because I wanted to graduate. And I've learned I can't upset white folks, but so much. No, can't do that. And so then we were in a the large group process 3rd year. This, Melody, I don't know if you remember this one either. I'm sure you do, Ada.
I remember this one.
Okay. And I was taking issue with something the process leader had said, that all of our pain is the same. And it took me, probably almost the entire process time to even find the mic. Okay.
Yes.
Because it was like, how do I even articulate what's true for me to the authority who's in charge? She white, and I'm in white space, and I'm like a little piece of pepper in the sea salt. And so finally I found the mic and I just spoke my truth. Like, all pain is not the same. And as a white woman, you saying that to me sounds like color blindness. And it then just invalidates my racialized pain. All pain is not the same. Not in the daily that I live. Now, if we're talking about quantum physics, that's a different level. But that's not what I'm talking about. And so I was terrified to say that. And Ada Robinson saved my life. Okay? I don't know if I would have made it through school without Ada Robinson. And certainly there were other teachers who I certainly appreciate, you know, who stood for me and let me know, like Kai, that there was a degree of, you get this race thing and you're not just going to have me stand alone in that. But I don't know what I would have done without Ada. Because I thought about leaving school my 3rd year, and in my creative arts project, I spoke to that. I wrote to that. Can these white people hold space for my racial pain? You know, like, I was really perturbed, to put it politely. And so when Shiomi was the dean of the 4th year, I was late to class, and she called me over. I was like, holy crap, I'm in trouble. Because clearly I did something wrong, right? Like, the authority doesn't talk to me unless I did something wrong. That's Black psychology. And so she sat me down and she's like, well, the senior team and I have discussed it, and we'd like for you to hold the feminine at commencement in the remarks. And I just started crying. Because, and she was like, that's not what I was expecting. And I was like, that was not on my radar screen, like, at all, at all. And I could feel how some of my classmates were happy for me, but I could also feel the white gaze that how would I be selected over them? And so I am grateful for my 4 years at Brennan. I wasn't in a rush to go back. And so when I have received during the pandemic the emails, I delete them. And when I saw this one and I read it and I scrolled down and I saw Sister Patricia's face, I said, well, maybe it might actually be okay to engage in this. And so what you were saying, Melody, about, you know, racism, mass incarceration, you know, it's everywhere. But Patricia, is everywhere. Patricia, you beautifully spoke to it in creating a context for today. It's everywhere. And so why I wanted to come to Brennan was because I wanted to know my wholeness. And so that as I am teaching about institutionalized racism and kind of holding a sacred space of transformation for mostly white people, Brennan helped me understand the terror associated with dissolving images and the void, and I can be more empathetic with white people. Because, as Ada said, if we are going to interrupt the isms, it will require unity and it will require love. And how do I love my oppressor? How do I love those who injure me, who think they know more about being Black and racism than I do, and who want to position themselves as teachers? That is interesting. But I do believe my 4 years of schooling have allowed me to be in a greater space of love, in a greater space of truth. And if it upsets people, I don't want to upset people, but you know, I'm upset a lot because of race and racism. So maybe we can share in the upsetness to come to some effective action. So thank you for listening to my brutal honesty.
Thank you, Ladine. I'm wondering if you would hold space for just a couple more minutes and address the question about being well-spoken for me, if you could do that.
What, it was well-spoken, and what other thing?
How all of our stories are similar.
Oh. Well, my Black daddy, you know, let me know early. When people comment on the fact that you're articulate, it's not a compliment. Because what do they expect? Right, they don't expect you to speak the King's English, because that's not what Black people do, right? So somehow I'm articulate and well-spoken, and that's white culture, because white culture is dominant in the United States, and grammatically correct English is seen as smart. You know, my granddaddy, a Black man from the South, was only afforded an elementary school education. So is he not brilliant just because he can't talk right? No, he's brilliant. But his brilliant manifests in different ways. Whiteness doesn't allow space for him. But if I know that, then I can decenter whiteness as a culture and understand there are other cultures that are just as valid, and be able to bring forth and honor that brilliance in its many manifestations. And that is a part of whiteness kind of luring people of color to itself. You know, come hither. You're not like them. You're not like those other Black people. No, tell me more about that. Yes, I am. What do you mean? Tell me more. Right? That is a part of the socialization of white superiority. Haruna, I forgot the second question again.
I think you kind of answered it.
Okay.
So it was beautiful. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to ask Melody the same question.
Well, Haruna, I agree with everything Ladine is saying, and I took you saying, "Hey, look at how articulate they are." I took that as a compliment coming from you, because it is not easy having this conversation with the audience that is here. I'm so happy to see so many familiar faces, teachers, people I don't know. I'm so excited that people want to know about this topic and they're humbling themselves to be engaging and listening and wanting to know more. So I took it as affirmation that I was able to bring a very important point forward. On the flip side, I feel like you were saying, hey, wow, they're great speakers. They were really able to articulate their points. They were able to really convey the bigger picture of what racism is, meaning it's so pervasive, right? It's like a cancer. It just gets in something and then it spreads, and then you can't extrapolate just one molecule out. It's just everywhere. And congratulating us for being able to step in that scary place, but also to change the optics, which Ladine was talking about, to where sometimes the stereotypical optics are that Black people, you know, we speak Ebonics, like Ladine was referring to. Ebonics means improper English, slang. Changing your voice, your tone, your word choices to purposefully and unpurposefully be counterculture. So that's the other side of it, right? Which is always there when a Black person speaks and they command the floor. There's always this pull, like Ladine said, to speak the King's English, which we all know. But then there is oftentimes the white majority having a preconceived notion that we can't step into that role and that we're going to be more in this camp of counterculture, and that's cool for us, and that's how we separate ourselves, and that's how we create our own identities, rather than coming into this merging. And so I think you were kind of trying to bring attention to the optics so people can change their stereotypical views when they see a Black woman or a Black man commanding space.
Thank you. Absolutely, both. So I want to say I am so proud of the two of you and so happy that you guys came back to join us for this. I was a teacher trainee on year 3 when the incident that Ladine was referring to took place. I remember that because it was my first day on the year 3 team. I had just come back from the emergency room. I ruptured my, I tore my hamstring the day before. And I was removed from year 2 and placed on year 3. And as I walked through the doors, there was a big brouhaha. And I didn't know what was going on. And I was listening to the dean and I was listening to the other faculty talk about what took place. And I thought, what the hell? What's going on? What is this? What is causing this upset or disturbance? And one of the people looked at me and said, I wish that you were there. And I thought, oh, why? And they said, well, because you would have vouched for me. So then another teacher filled me in on what took place. And I said, oh, I wouldn't have vouched for you. You are racist. That's the truth. That's the absolute truth. And later I found Ada and we started to communicate. Because what you had experienced, I had been experiencing throughout my time at BBSH. The minimization of our pain, our experiences, not being able to hold what we bring or what we want to share. It's easy to listen to the characterologies. It's easy to listen to sexual abuse or domestic abuse or whatever. But when it comes to a person feeling marginalized or oppressed, and my experience of being pulled over by the police can't hold it. Or my experience of an older white gentleman calling me a black bastard because I was trying to get my son out of the back seat, 3-month-old, and I was taking a little longer than he could deal with, he could tolerate. Or me moving to Miami the very first day because our house wasn't ready, a young Hispanic woman standing in the elevator with my wife and me. My wife's 8.5 months pregnant, and she's using the N-word in front of us like it was nothing. I don't even use that word. How dare you do that in front of me? So I can sit here and talk about my experiences, and I have a lot of resistance to that because I've done it before. It wasn't supported. I'm open to having a different experience. That's why I'm here. But I can tell you this, my experience pales in comparison to George Floyd, Eric Garner, Breonna Taylor, and everybody else who was murdered. So me sitting here and being on display, what does it serve? What purpose does it serve? Okay, so it's not for me to change. I know what racism is. It's for those people who don't look like me or my fellow panelists to start doing the work. To start looking at their transference or their projections or stereotypes or biases. You can go to YouTube. You can look up white supremacy. You can look up systemic racism and educate yourselves. And then do something about it. Become an anti-racist. It's not enough to just see it and say, oh, that's wrong. What's the next step for you? I'm gonna get on the ground and start doing my work. I've done that. I will continue to do that. My friend Kai talked to me a couple days ago about being my white ally, him being my white ally. And at first I thought, well, I have a white wife. What the fuck are you being my white ally? How's that gonna serve me? Well, I listen because I know that he wants to do something. It's like, hey, if you get pulled over, make sure you call me or one of your white friends so that they can come down and support you. Say, okay, that's cool. I might be dead by the time you get there, but hey, that's cool. I'll do that. I'll think about it. And then I thought, wow, he's really willing to put himself out there, to challenge his white friends to go deeper, to start exploring their racism, to start educating them, calling them out in the moment when something's off. Wow, that's an ally. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to contact you and share with you my experience. So if I can do that with him, I'm gonna have you, all of you in this audience who are not Black, be my fucking ally. Yeah, I said it like that because I wanna get it clear that we're here, we're frustrated, and we need allies who are not going to close their eyes at what's going on in the world, or act like it didn't happen because it's not in your backyard. I had a conversation with a friend of mine, good friend of mine, yesterday, right before I spoke to Patricia. And we were talking about racism. She's Latina, she presents white. We were talking about racism. We were talking about being on this panel and the questions, you know, kind of preparing me for being here now. And she's one of the few people who contacted me after George Floyd just to say, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? I shared this with the faculty. Not one person on the faculty contacted me to ask how I was doing. So this friend of mine then asked, what can I do next? She contacted me a couple of weeks ago because there was a protest here in Coral Gables and asked me if I wanted to be a part of the protest. I said, absolutely. Wow. You're willing to do that? Yeah. Cool. She got involved. So I asked her, what did it take for you to get involved? It's not new that people are getting murdered. Black people are getting murdered. What did it take for you to finally say, I'm going to do something? Bless her heart. She said it was because of Blackout Tuesday on Instagram. So on Instagram, a couple of weeks ago, not sure what this specific date was, but people weren't posting on their stories on that Tuesday to support Black Lives Matter. So she had already heard about George Floyd. She doesn't have a TV, so she doesn't watch the news or anything, but I told her about it. She went directly to YouTube, looked it up, and contacted me to say, hey, how are you doing? She didn't get involved yet. But as soon as she saw that other people were observing Blackout Tuesday, she decided, oh, this is important. I need to do something about it. So that's what it took for her. So what's the button? What's the thing that you as an individual need to get active? Because it's not enough just to post. Nope. Not enough. If you hear Black jokes or racist jokes or homophobic jokes, are you willing to get involved, step in, say that's not okay? Are you willing to be an ally? Or will you collude and allow it to happen? And then go to your Black friend and act really close to them, like everything's cool between you, knowing that you just heard somebody denigrate someone of color. How will you be from this point on? So this is a 6-week series. I might ask this question again. I might ask, what have you been doing in these past 6 weeks? Actually, I am going to ask that question. You guys who know me know me.
Can I jump in there and make a request?
Yes, please.
Okay, I want to request, this is coming from my rage place.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to be like the person, you know, like that everybody comes up to and says, oh, Mel, well, I didn't know. Or can you tell me what to read? Or, oh my God, what movie should I watch? Or this is horrible. I've never heard. I mean, I can't deal with that anymore. I am young, I'm in my 40s. So I didn't grow up in slavery. I didn't grow up in segregation. I don't know what the hell it is either until I saw a movie, till I went to some museums, till my parents educated me. So Melody, had to watch the movies, read the books. I had to be observant. I had to go into a jail and be like, why is everybody Black in here? And have that implode my mind and saying, what happened? What did we do? I don't get it. Why is everybody mad at us? I needed to go into a shopping mall and feel somebody like walking behind me or my counterparts like I'm going to steal something, and ask the questions of, well, what did we do? Why is that happening? Why is everybody in the world mad at Black people? And figure it out for myself. Now, do I want compassion from people who want to be more woke, as we say in the Black community, meaning more conscious? Absolutely. But do I want to be your Britannica encyclopedia? Hell no. I want everybody to go out and read that book like I had to do, watch the movie, get active, for sure, have some conscious conversations like we're having with other people, but don't make Black people have to take care of you once again. By taking care of you, we mean making ourselves small, saying the nice things, not being rageful, being polite, putting on like, the cloak of invisibility, or trying to like blend into whatever white culture wants us to do and be, and all of that, as well as keeping our counterculture identity. It's like, I don't want to be that person. So when everybody's doing their own personal work, like, do your work. Like, do your work. Don't ask for like the cliff notes.
Word.
I'm done. Drop the mic. Drop the mic. I can't.
I agree. Thank you so much. That's, I think, how I started the faculty meeting. I'm not here to educate you. You got to educate yourself. Do your work. Okay. So I'm going to share a little bit about my experience. I shared this with Patricia the other day, and she was stunned. So my sister Patricia was asking me about what it's like for me being a Black man and going through this. And I said, hey, let me tell you about what I have in my car. So I have dash cams. Here's one. Here's two. And here's one of my body cameras that I wear daily. Okay? Clip this to my shirt when I go into a community where there's a lot of white people. Why? So I don't want to be accused of something. I have my phone charged. I have my charger with me. I have a radar detector in the front dash and one on the back. So I don't want to be pulled over. So I want to be alerted to any police officers. When I gave my son his first driving lesson when he was 14 years old, first thing I did, I didn't teach him where the brake was or the gas pedal was. Put him in the driver's seat and I said, if you get pulled over by the police, this is what you do. I put everything into a little folder, registration. He has his license, insurance card. It's right there above the mirror, above the rear view mirror. You pull it down, do not reach. Do not reach, because if you reach, they may accuse you of looking for a weapon. So it's above, it's clipped. He has it. Place your hands on the steering wheel. You crack the window about 2 inches. You say, yes, sir. No, sir. So I started doing a lot of research about, hey, what do you say or what do you do during a traffic stop? I wanted to know. I started looking at these videos made by police officers or attorneys, and they would say, you don't say anything to the police when they pull you over. Assume that you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Remain silent. You ask the question, am I being detained or am I free to go? You address the officer by their name. You ask for their badge number. You record it. And you ask them what you did wrong. You also say, I do not consent to searches. You do not allow any police officer to look through your car. Now, how do the police get around that? If you roll your window all the way down, what they've done in the past is say, I smell marijuana. get out of the car. Once you get out of the car, they have probable cause to check your car. Once they have probable cause, you're standing on the side, their buddies are there, you're handcuffed, waiting. Now, during that time, they could do anything. Plant evidence, which Baltimore City is notorious for. My sister's on the call, so she lives in Maryland. She can vouch for that. Her mother-in-law is a retired, gosh, it'll come to me. Okay, parole officer. She's a retired parole officer. So a lot of the people she deals with have been wrongfully convicted of crimes or having a small amount of marijuana, which is pretty much legal in every state now. Okay, so what Ladine was saying is that the jails are overflowing with Black men because of silly drug charges. Okay. I say all this because my son is 17 now, and he's going to be going off to college. I won't be there. I won't be there with him. He's going to have to make his own decisions. And I have to believe, I have to know in my heart that I did everything as a father to prepare him for the world. Did I think of everything? He has a bit of a short fuse. He doesn't like authority. So I have to do scenarios. I used to have to do scenarios with him where he would calm down, breathe, go to Hara, ground himself so he could be present. Because if he steps out of line, I may not hear from my son again. All of this hit me really hard in 2017, August of 2017. My wife and my daughter were in Orlando, and my son and I were in Atlanta. Son needed something from the pharmacy. It's about 10:30 p.m. I went out to 24-hour CVS. Since we had just driven from Miami to Atlanta, I didn't want to drive my car, which has all of the dash cams, all of the video surveillance. I drove my wife's car, which has nothing. I pulled into the CVS parking lot, and an off-duty police officer who was, I guess he was working security for CVS, approached the passenger window of my wife's car, asked me to roll the window down. I did. He looked at me and he said, "Oh, it's okay, you're not the guy." There was a Hispanic couple behind him, and he looked at them and he said, "No, it's not your car, it's not the guy." Not feeling safe, I decided I'm gonna leave. So I turned the engine on. As soon as I did that, this police officer who had a polo shirt on, a weapon on his holster, and his flashlight and baton on his side, no other identification, didn't have a badge that I could see, ran from the passenger side of my car. Now, this is during 2017 where Black men were being shot. Okay, so it was up. He ran from the passenger window to the driver's window, unclipped his weapon, pulled it out of the holster, told me to turn off the car and to slowly get out. Because of horror and because I was prepared by my father, I knew what to do. I rolled down the window, put my hands on the outside, and opened the door slowly. Started opening the door to step out. Now, this person who's supposed to protect and serve reholstered his weapon, didn't say a word to me. He left. He went back to speak to the couple without telling me that I was free to go. So as I think about it, as I'm talking about it, I'm fucking pissed. Because if I'd done the wrong thing, I may not have gone home to my son. I sat there in that car for 15 minutes while my legs were shaking. As I sat there, I was thinking, wow, I could have died. Could have died. My son wouldn't have known where I was. My wife and daughter wouldn't have known where I was. And who knows what they would have said about me. I didn't have a recorder that night. So after I was able to calm myself down, I pulled out of the parking space and I went towards the exit. This police officer, who was about 6'4", good 235, 240, was standing there at the exit with the couple. I pulled my car up thinking that he was just going to step to the side and let me go. Good 30 seconds passed. He kind of glanced over his shoulder and then told them to step to the side. If I would have asked, sir, would you please, I'm attempting to leave, that might have been a cause for action for him. I would have blown my horn. I probably wouldn't be sitting here. When I got home, for an hour, I just stood in my son's doorway, watching. And I made a point of saying, I'm going to educate him and as many people as I can about this bullshit, this nonsense. Because it doesn't have to happen. So I'm also aware that I'm the only Black male on this panel. And I often become curious about that. Actually, the only Black person in the school at this point, at this moment. And I'm curious about that. And I was asked about that. And I said, well, Black people won't come because it's not a safe container yet. They can't be held, they won't come. If you're still aware of how articulate a Black person is, then there's a lot of work to do. If you still have projections or stereotypes that you're not willing to deal with, it's not a safe container. If it's not a safe enough container for me, and I'm a teacher, to go to my colleagues and say, hey, this is what's going on, and you bet your ass it's not a safe container for students or first-year students to come in. It's not just the teachers, though, it's also the student body. It's important for everybody to do their work and to be willing to listen and validate. And not justify by saying that you have Black friends, you don't see color, or your family member is married to a Black person, or we're all the same, we're all a human race. That's painful, that's dismissive. So when I signed on to do this with Patricia, I said, Patricia, we don't really know each other, but if you ask my students, I'm direct and I like to get messy. Remember that, Patricia?
I do.
So I'm here to get messy. I'm here to hold. I'm here to share. I'm here to reflect. I'm here to do the work with you. So be aware of jokes that you may make about Black people, or comments that you may make, like, oh, well, you're mean, or you can be mean. Why that's important is because Black people have been put in jail or killed because a white person has made a comment. The other person has been aggressive or mean, or whistled at you, or looked at you too long if you're a white woman. A lot of Black men, Emmett Till being the youngest that I know of, 14 years old, have been killed, have been castrated because they may have glanced in the direction of a white woman. And I also said to Patricia in our very first meeting that it takes a white woman to do this work, to get change. It's like when the 4 little girls were killed in the bombing. How things got started is that white women who were mothers were outraged. And they'd had enough. And they decided to get involved. It changed. We still have a lot of changing to do. So I guess I'm done for now. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Haruna. And thank you to everyone for your sharing and your honesty and just everything. It's I know all of us are deeply touched. And at this moment in time, I'd like to open it up to see if there's any faculty that would like to share.
And I know it's Ladine. I know Ada can take care of herself, but I was just curious if Ada had anything else to share.
I think she's speaking on mute.
Okay. Now, every one of our stories it's about racism. It's about being put in a category that we are to be inferior to anyone else. I have, I could go from the year I walked into school and pull out racism, But everybody that's in that place, if they're working on themselves, they recognize everything that contributed to pain, or because the teachers at the school, and I was a teacher there too, it's like always something that says you're in defense. So you could not. Haruna mentioned Emmett Till Lewis. He was a friend. We went to the same school. And when he left and he was to come back. So all of us had the experience of him not coming back and what took place. Now, we were all children. So everybody, any class I went in, when I tried to process any of those things, and each year, even as a teacher, even when I was holding other students, I had to deal with trying to hold myself, because and we all said it, when you're Black and you come into a Black body, that is a time when you learn as a little child that you are different because of the perception of those that come into a body with white privileges. And it's just part of what happens. And when you try to process that, if you've never been Black, you don't know how to. And many times it's hard for you to even try to learn how to hold a person with something that you haven't had to experience. And all of us know when we do something to another that pains them. But I don't want to give up my privilege. Okay. If one person that's in a white body would want to change, would they want to change bodies with me? No. It's like Ladine was saying, yeah, I'd want to be in a white body because there's privileges. I mean, I've had to deal with this, and I've had to teach my children. I can identify with Haruna and teaching because I have children, and I had to teach them how to stay out of harm's way. And they still have to do this. They have to teach their children, and it's painful to have to walk into a place and have folks to walk behind you. I've had to see if you are about to steal something, like Melanie was talking about. I know white young women that has said, I should have a record. I should be in jail. I stole from the mall and the police gave me a pat on the hand. Or I was driving drunk and I got a pat on the hand. So this is the time that we as human beings need to change and need to be willing. I have my individuals that I work with, they must take a person that don't look like them and be willing to listen. Just listen. If you're just having conversation and you're willing to listen and hold a person, you can help. You'll be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And so that's basically all I need to say, because like I say, anybody that they know already how they approach, they have to decide if they want to change something. If they want to this country to move forward, they have to change something. Because we as people of color cannot tolerate this crap anymore. We just cannot. So there needs to be people that's willing to work on their stuff. And if you work on your stuff, then you can draw what you need. When I walk in some place, I know people don't want me there. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm gone. I mean, I had to go even to live in a house. So we need to all open our hearts, because there's one thing that draw people together is love. But we have to allow that love to radiate through us. And sometimes it's hard because everybody got their stuff, but you have to be willing to learn. And willing to learn means that you don't stand and look at someone of a different race. Get to know them. When you get to know these people, you'll find out that they all want the same thing. They want to be able to live, raise their children, and succeed in whatever it is they are called to do. So I think that's what I need to say. And thank you, Miss Ladine. I figured that I'm going to be here some more. I get to say something else because this has to stop. It has to stop because Black young men and women need to be able to go and go into school or wherever they go and receive folks saying, come, we want to be with you. You are important. I want to hold you while you heal whatever it is you need to heal. Because I'm sure that's what Haruna does. He holds these students. I do it. I have lots of people that are from that's white and privileged, but I can hold their stuff. But it's hard for you guys to hold our stuff, and we need holding as well in order to heal ourselves. And sometime I remember Barbara doing a lecture, and she talked, some of us come from, it's in our DNA because we oppressed people, and the younger people have not experienced all of that, but it's in their DNA. And if it's in your DNA, it's in you. And oppression is, if you got, like Ladine got her Asian mother and her Black daddy. Now, in certain stages of life, each one of them have come from a place with wounding in their DNA, and that is going to follow them. So if they are trying to process that, they need someone that's willing to hold them and go with them there and not be so fearful they got to get away from them. And that's what I found a lot of. It's too painful. I can't deal with it. So I'm ready to go. So therefore, the person don't get what they're there for. Okay, thank you.
I wanted to jump in too and just say that I love hearing from Ada because I haven't seen her in so long and I miss her.
Yes, I miss you too.
I mean, and she's one of the people, I'm going to cry. She's one of the people that held me at school. I always went to Jonathan. I went to Ada. I mean, lots of people held my hand at Brennan. And going there was honestly one of the best things I did for me in my life. That I can really say is one of the best things I ever did for me in my life. It's carried me and taught me a lot about who I am today. And what makes me uncomfortable about this conversation, and maybe it's the undercurrent. It's not how I'm modulating myself, but I feel an undercurrent where Black people are begging people to see, begging people to understand. I don't want to beg anymore. People, this is American history.
That's right.
American history. If we're working with the public, and we're working with people trying to heal from all types of traumas, we have to know about all different cultures, and Black trauma is a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we can no longer give it a very short space in history. We can't defend against it because people feel bad, because white people feel bad, because Black people feel embarrassed and ashamed. We can't hide from the fact that it happened, and it's leaving remnants on our country. And that's why we're looking at the news and everybody feels stressed, because it's part of history. And I don't want to beg anymore. I want us to be as educated as we say we are and stop all the ignorance.
That's right. That's good.
I'm gonna go again too.
Of course you are.
I guess there are a few things that are coming up for me, and one is this kind of comedic principle or concept of the both and, whereas in the West, it's more either or, right, wrong. And so what I'm aware of is this both and. Like when I heard you, Melody, and you said school was like such a profound experience for you. And it really was for me. You know, like I really felt like when I graduated, I had a sense of my wholeness, you know, that I hadn't known before. So that can be true as well as the other things that I shared. Okay.
100%.
Right. And I feel like that's actually, in my opinion, a gift of school, was to be able to hold all of it.
Yes.
Okay. So when Lori Keene said fourth year, the greatest healers are those who can simply be present with the client. And I was like, what? Really? Is it that simple? And she's like, well, you spent 4 years creating a container so you could actually do that, right? And so I feel grateful, and I would go back to school. And as Ada often says, how do I help pave the way? Because I stand on the shoulders. I exist and I have what I have and am who I am because of those who didn't know me but fought for me. Okay, they fought for my freedom even though they could never be free. And so I just wanted to share that. And when Haruna and Melody were both sharing like what would be helpful for them, and Melody was like, I don't want to be the encyclopedia. And I feel, and this is where I'm going into my thinking space a little, because like I've taught this stuff for like a decade. And what often happens is white people go into a space where they want to do something, and they want to do the right thing. And not all, and you know this, but don't know this, not all Black people are the same. So some people are going to want you to call them. Some people don't call me, right? But this is what I need you to do, right? So it becomes more of a conversation and relationship, which is a part of the challenge in a racist society, because race divides us and doesn't allow us to have deep, authentic conversation, you know? And then I end up as the angry Black woman, or if the white person can take more of it, don't really want to spend a whole lot of time because I'm constantly talking about racism. And that kind of kills happy hour, you know? So I think that kind of talking to the person and finding out what they need from you. And if you're up for that, and don't ask if you don't really want to know. So when I was looking at the news, not that I do that often, but it was the white male sheriff in Flint. And he was saying, look, I'm here for you. Like, tell me what you need. And some of the protesters were like, walk with us. And I was like leaning in, like waiting for it. And he like paused for like a second. And then he said, okay. And I was like, thank God, because you better not have asked them, right? And you're not willing to deliver on it. Because then that only adds to the lack of trust and disappointment. Another thing that teachers would tell me at school, I got a lot. They would say, be gentle with yourself. And I'm like, what? I am gentle. I'm not gentle. I'm gentle, right? I had no concept. I had a Black concept of gentle, okay? Because whiteness doesn't treat Black gently, okay? So that was like a foreign concept. Oh, like gentle, what? Okay, like I have to really practice and know what the hell that is. Because where I'm from, we don't do gentle. And whiteness don't do gentle upon us. And I'm so grateful for the invitation to even recognize that there was this gentleness that was foreign to me. And that I could be invited into that and explore what that is for me. So I'm grateful. I also, when I forget who was saying it, one of you were saying, it's either Melody or Ada, the white mothers. So that is the truth. When it comes to interrupting oppression, it is the dominant that has to do it. We could march all day as Black people, right? Historically, things don't change until the dominant requires it. Okay? So I am excited that there's so many white people on this call and leaning into the conversation.
Yes.
Because there will be no justice unless you say there must be justice. And even when you protest, notice y'all ain't getting shot. You getting rubber bullets. We be getting real ones. Okay.
Amen.
It's a whole different reception when you're out in the street. So Haruna, good for you. But I'm like, don't go back out there protesting, brother. Let the white people go out there, because they will, as you know, they'll totally kill you. And it's not that we don't need to be represented. And when white people say, what can they do? This is one of the things. You provide cover. You provide cover because you won't be harmed to the same degree as I would be, or Haruna, or Melody, or Patricia, or Ada. And I remember fourth year, I have three more things. I'll talk fast. Barbara, this is when she was like, she would come in and give us a lecture every, class. And fourth year, she actually said, like, Black people are the most marginalized all over the world. And I was like, hallelujah. Like, thank you, Barbara Brennan, founder of this school. That's amazing that you would say that the white lady in charge of all of this said that. That meant a lot to me that she said that. And I remember Janice Luckenbill. I just love that lady. She would greet me and she would just say, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And I would cry because I know she meant it. And I remember one time, because I was working my race stuff, and I brought up race to her. And she immediately apologized, wanted to make it right. And there was something in me that was like, Ladine, that's not what this is right now. But if she had gotten defensive and said, no, I'm not, or that's not true, then my defense would have stayed more heightened. But because she gave me the space to just kind of explore in that and be with me, I recognized that's not what's at play here. And so I could take that off the table. And then in the spirit of kind of helping white people who often, in my experience, look for solutions and how they can help, which I appreciate. But it's not a technical solution, right? It's not always gonna be the hammer to hit the nail with. You know, you gotta have a repertoire of like strategies and things that are rooted in relationship and also your heightened racial consciousness. And so I remember Kahea, I think it was 4th year, and you know, she had the Hawaii connection with me. So she would often bring that. And I went to her before graduation and I just thanked her for bringing that and speaking to that. And the way she did, and she goes, because she could see I was in tears, she's like, that really means a lot to you. And she was like perplexed, right? And I'm thinking, absolutely. Because the Black racism, as far as I'm concerned, is similar to the indigenous Polynesian Hawaiian, right? Like Queen Liliuokalani did not willingly give up her monarchy. It was taken. And so the Hawaiian people have been destroyed just like the indigenous people on the continental United States. So to speak to that and bring that is important. And I remember John Within would play his didgeridoo. And I'm thinking, that's beautiful to bring that. And what is the narrative of the indigenous Aboriginal people to whom that belongs? So there's a context for your offering that presences those people. And so I think lastly, I'm not a mother. And I think there was probably 15 seconds in my entire life where I actually contemplated maybe having children. And I'm sure there are a lot of different reasons why I don't, but a part of it is I can't imagine raising Black children in this world. I'm not built for that because I would kill somebody and I would end up probably imploding, because as those who have spoken, Haruna in particular, that's a lot. And I'm just not up for that. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you. So I wanted to take a moment and open it up to see if there were any Indigenous or other people of color who would like to share about their experiences of racism. Maybe you could either raise your hand or type into the chat, or, you know, I'm not sure of what the best way to do that.
This is Reverend Jennifer Nelson. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And thank you for unmuting me. And thank you for inviting me to this deep conversation. I gave a sermon 3 weeks ago, and I started it by saying my heart is very heavy, very heavy. I am originally from South America, so I'm Afro-Caribbean, West Indian. And we have our own stuff there, but it's not this. But I have children that are firstborn Americans. And when your sons, I have 2 sons, when your sons say to you, Mom, we probably need to go back to your country. This is their country. We are so afraid. I decided I needed to do something about it, and I'm about to do so. But hear me when I say, even as clergy, when we are in a churchyard, if there's nobody else there, we always have the white neighbors looking to see who we are. They never do it if you're white. I had one of my clergy colleagues had the neighbors call the police on him with his collar. His church, he is the head of his church. And they called the police and they came out to check on him, and they checked on him and had him take out his ID card. It's the stuff you talk about, Haruna. And I took notes, Haruna. I took notes for my boys. I have 2 boys. And I lived in a white neighborhood, and a fairly all white neighborhood. And I live in the East Bay, California, East Bay. And I would have my sons have to get out of the car, even though his friends who were white were the drunk ones. And they'd sit him on the sidewalk. He would be 2 blocks away from home. He'd say, please, I live right over there. But of course, it's a white neighborhood. He had no right to be living there. And you talk about, it's called driving while black, right? The DWB thing. And each of us knows to tell our young black men and our children, because the women get killed too, even in their beds. We know to tell them to keep your hands on the steering wheels. And I took note when you said, put the identification on the rear view mirror instead, so they're not reaching down. I took notes when you said you wear a body camera. I cry for you because I cried for my boys, my young boys. The other day, real quickly, I promise you, the other day my son was going out. It's when we first had the shelter in place. And I am of the age where I am high risk. So he went for me. I just come back. I'm a scientist too, by the way. And I say that to you to say, yeah, because then I'm accepted. For white people, I'm accepted. I'm accepted because I'm supposedly smart by your standards. I say that to say, I came home, and I'm home, and I sent my son out. He was going to go out, but we had yet had the face covering. So what does he use? He put a bandana on, and as a mother, when he turned around and I saw him in that bandana, I said, you can't go out there looking like that. He had to decide to go with nothing, to catch the COVID, whatever, because I was afraid he would get shot going to the store at dusk with a bandana on his face. I rest my case, and I'm telling you right now, I'm about to do something that hopefully will make a difference in this country. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I unfortunately have the job of being the time monitor. So we have time for a couple of more sharings, and then we'll be closing with a meditation from Haruna. So I did want to invite, if there was a couple of more people that wanted to share, we're totally open to hearing that. And I wish we had more time. Everyone sharing is just so deeply touching. And I hope that you'll join us on the rest of the calls, so that you'll be sharing with us the wonderful work that you're going to be doing, that you just mentioned, you just presenced.
I wanted to say something, and I feel like I'm talking way too much, but I'm just gonna risk it because now I can't stop myself. But I wanted to speak to Lisa when you said, hey, we want to open up the floor to people of color. And I'm glad the Reverend stepped in because I think, and I don't know that this is your intention. I don't know you intimately in that way, but I know how I heard that. And there are times when the topic has been about Black people or Black people in the entire African diaspora, including the Caribbean, including Latin America, including America. It's a huge diaspora of where all Black people traveled through the Middle Passage of slavery, etc. And some were even indigenous to that land. But people get uncomfortable with Black people just saying, hey, we're holding the space. Right now, we're talking about the African diaspora and how our influence has covered the entire country. And so we want to say, oh, well, now can other people of color speak, or do other people want to speak? As if us holding the space is offensive to someone else. And it was my understanding that we came here to talk about the African diaspora so we can heal this huge gaping hole in our planetary consciousness around this topic. I don't have the capacity now to say, let's talk about Latin America. Let's talk about Latins, but not Afro-Latins. Right now, I'm talking about the African diaspora. I don't want to talk about the Chinese right now. I don't want to talk. They all have their place in history. Absolutely. I am not negating that. I don't think that the Chinese internment camps weren't awful. I don't think that DACA is having a problem. I am educated of my history. But in this moment, by me holding the space as a person that's part of the African diaspora, should not feel like I have to share my space with anyone, or that because I'm holding space, I'm offensive to anyone. So I just want to put that out there.
Thank you.
This is Catherine Hall. Building on what Melanie just said, Lisa, I think it would be helpful to hear from you about what your intention was in opening the floor.
You mean for the whole thing or for this part?
Just this part.
Well, originally it was just exactly as Melody expressed. And, you know, what happened is we talked about things that kind of kept morphing into different ideas. And also it felt like it might be important to end with having after we were opening it up for a few minutes to the indigenous and people of color, to also have the white people share how it felt to, you know, to receive the sharings from other people, and how it felt to be associated with oppression. And so the idea was to kind of just give everybody a little bit of time to speak, but primarily the Black panel that we had originally focused on. And so I think that was just the idea to give everybody a little bit of a chance to speak. And I totally appreciate what you're saying.
I think it's important for us to see how simple and easy it is for us to create divisions, oftentimes not intentional, because we see our brains basically categorize the world. I mean, it's how we function.
And I think the challenge is for us to transcend that, to understand when those divisions make sense and when they divide.
And I would say, to piggyback on what you're saying, is this is the work. So when people are talking about earlier the work, this is it. There's no way that someone is socialized in whiteness and is never going to screw up. It's not going to happen. So the question is, when I do, how do I be in that? And yield to the voice of color, the darker voice, telling to guide my action, because I want to center the Black people as a color, culture, a consciousness, at least in this conversation. So then the parameters shift based on what the call is from the darker people. Because then for me, at least, I'm like, oh, okay. So they're actually willing to be flexible and hear me and center what I'm saying I need, or in this case, melody. And how do I know if it divides or brings together until I do it? And it has an impact that I can then learn from. So for me, it's not about getting it right. It's about being in the discomfort of getting it wrong, quote unquote. And then what do I learn from that so that I can move differently in the future? And I really appreciate you, sister, for asking Lisa for the clarification. You know, I don't see your name on the screen, but I just wanted to appreciate you.
Can you hear me? This is Catherine Ladine. I don't know if you remember me. I think I was a year after you. Catherine Hall, also Tayo Hall. Nice to see you, Ladine. Good to see you.
Hi, Catherine. Nice
I'm also Black. I chose not to be on the panel because, you know, for me, it's a very, I wouldn't know where to start, what to say, and I was taking your lead, and it's been a really, I think, beautiful experience. Thank you, Patricia and Haruna. Hi, Haruna, for organizing. I think there needs to be a lot of healing here. I think for me, I see, you know, the Brennan School as the part of it that is a business and the part of it that is so extremely white that knowing how to step in this space, the first thing I would wonder is why even bother? I think that, you know, Haruna and Patricia, I think what you've done here is voiced a lot of pain and a lot of the experiences of being Black in a really beautiful, wonderful way. And I can feel that for many people here, it's the first time that they're hearing and seeing and experiencing this. And, you know, I think healing is going to be such a journey. It is such a journey. And I really thank you guys for making the steps that you did. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine. Lisa and I and Haruna had many hours of discussing the shape of all of the events. And so it's unfolding as we speak. And I'm just grateful for all of your voices and there's so much grief here, and pain, and yeah, thank you to all of you who came and decided to be on the panel. And I see there are others here too, so I'll step back and hear more.
I just wanted to say something quickly. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
I'm kind of reading the chat messages coming in and kind of listening, and I'm seeing a lot of apologies and a lot of feeling sad. And I know there's a place for that, but for me, that feels kind of condescending, because of course it's going to be sad. I mean, how can you not look at it and not be sad? But it's not an apology that, for me as a Black woman, it's not an apology I'm looking for. It's not to evoke emotion or to make you cry. It's to have a real dialogue about what is each heart willing to do? What is each white heart willing to do to confront that own racist demon? You know, not the devil horn demon, but that dark place, you know. And to start sadness, I don't want you all to feel sorry for us. We come from a strong people. Don't victimize us, you know. Stand there in that okayness of us being a strong, righteous indignation, not, you know, not to hold us like, let us cry. No, I mean, the time for that type of healing is not where I'm at with it. I'm with it like, okay, let's not have a cry party. Let's have a dialogue to where you're saying, you know, I've thought about this and my heart is willing to do. It's like just kind of stop apologizing. It's can't change it. So I'm not in a space where I can hear an apology. I'm learning new things, I've experienced, you know, truths, and apologizing. Oh, everybody apologizes. It's not about that anymore. It's about checking the heart and looking into your own heart and saying, okay, this is where I participate in racism. This is where I'm willing to look within my own self. You know, don't start from a place of pain. Start from a place of intellectualizing, like, you know, like it's been said on the panel, from where that offer of help. And sometimes crying about it ain't saved us yet, you know, it ain't helped us yet. So that's my piece.
Thank you, Natisha. No, I was sitting here, I'm supposed to do a meditation at some point, and I'm sitting here listening to everything that's been said and kind of reading the chats as well, and asking myself the question of what's right? What feels right? Sometimes we have a tendency to want to wrap things up really nicely in a bow and send everybody on their way. How I am, though, is I prefer for people to sit in their discomfort. Sit and tolerate what's going on, what's been stirred up, rather than just go into a space of what I consider would be a spiritual bypass. Let's sit here in this space and let whatever these emotions that have come up and speak to that. For those people who are frustrated, name it, own it. If you have discomfort about hearing what's been said on the panel, good. Tolerate it. How long can you tolerate it? Can you tolerate it? Are you willing to do the work? And that's what I love about Brennan. That's the beauty of what we do. Okay, we challenge each other to go deeper. And like Ladine and Melody and Patricia and others have said, the school is magical. It's magical. It's transformative. And it's missing a big piece. Let's keep it real. And we can do a lot of good things. We have to be able to hear each other, validate each other, and tolerate what's been said. So I'm not in the space of doing a meditation. And I see Ladine nodding, so maybe she's in agreement, or I'd love some feedback. Just don't hesitate. I know you won't. What's right? What feels right?
What feels right to me is that everybody, because the minute you go into meditation, they're going to come out of this place. And so just everybody be where they are, processing what has come up, because I'm sure everybody got something that came up. That's what I feel.
Thank you, Ada. What's this silence? Who's scared?
For me, it's been very much of an eye-opener for since I considered even being here today. I listened to one of the videos that was suggested, and it's I don't think I ever understood systemic racism up until this point, and my work is to just look at how much that is acting out in me, a lot of it which is unconscious, and so that's my work.
What's your name?
Roland?
Hi, Roland.
Yeah. Good to see you, Roland.
Good to see you too. You're muted, Melody. Sorry.
Oh, I wasn't saying anything. I was reading all the comments. I'm reading out loud. Everyone's putting on this cool stuff in the comments. Nobody's saying it out loud, but the comments are pretty cool, and I'm trying to chase all the comments.
Aruna?
Yes.
Bailey from Halifax.
Hey, Bailey.
Thank you. I just want to sit with this. I don't want to meditate. I want to sit with the discomfort, so thank you.
Aruna.
Yes.
Hi. Shalamaya.
Hi, Shalamaya. How are you?
I'm like how this is right now. That's how I am right now. It feels like a stasis to me. I had a lot to say before in the other Brennan group. I did videos or whatever, and I had just felt this profound desire to just hold the space. So even when there was an invitation to speak, you know, I just was like, it's not, the wave hasn't returned back to me to say anything about it. Even though I'm a person of, you know, mixed, I'm all kind of mixed. You know, I think it's a really good thing that we could really not put a pretty bow on this and just be here in this place, which if we have a feeling of we don't like stasis, it could be uncomfortable, but it feels like stasis to me. It feels like if we're gonna create a new way, we gotta be here and wait. All of us here together, wait for a unified way out. And that's what it feels like to me. I you know, and I had talked about in another post that I did with the group, like the promised land is unity. The promised land is unity. But before we get to that place, we have to acknowledge and center Blackness first. So I want to keep holding that we continue to center Blackness, that we continue to, you know, as long as really, really follow the wave authentically. You know, if it means that the next 6 weeks is just about Blackness, and that's what it is. Because it's just all too often that we go to some other thing. And centering Blackness, for me, my understanding is that all Black lives matter. That means that every single way that a Black life shows up, whether they're disabled, whether they're gay, whether they're of LGBTQIA, you know, Christian, Muslim, however it is that a Black life shows up, you know, and yeah, so that's basically it. And I really appreciate you guys putting yourselves out here in this way. You know, I'm really sending so much support right now to you and Ada and Melody and Ladine. I can't even describe it, but it's just a profound desire to really hold you all up for doing this right now. So, because I know what it is. And I know what it is also being the mother of 5 Black girls and the wife of a Black husband, of holding up, you know, that piece of support. the importance of it. So center Blackness. That's all.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you spoke up because I hear that you're fire on Facebook. I hear you have a lot to say. So I invite you to say it in this container. Thank you.
Ashe. Thank you.
I'd like to speak for a little bit. Oh, I've got an echo of my own voice. I'll try and ignore that. It's maybe a metaphor for my whiteness. Right? I live in an echo chamber. I wanted to respond to Ladine and the comment about the didgeridoo and opening the topic of cultural appropriation. And I think that's something that I've struggled with a lot myself to find where I fall in relation to it. I haven't brought didgeridoo to school in more than a decade, that's for sure. Even though it's something I'm deeply connected to personally. And one of the things in year 2 that a few years ago we looked at was removing the teachings of the native medicine wheel out of year 2 because it was disconnected. Anyway, I just want to say that's something I'm committed to continuing to look at personally as well as in terms of the curriculum. And I thank you for bringing it up and for all the sharing, all the panel members. It's really so valuable. Lots going on inside and continue to look at all of that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Hi everyone, my name is Ling. It took me a while to speak up because I'm not a member of the Brennan school community. I'm here as a guest. And lots of things I can speak about, but I wanted to talk to you, Lisa, and say, I'm carrying a bit of a disappointment in the way how you responded to Melody, or maybe I say how you not responded to her. And I want to say that I identify as a person of color, but I'm speaking to you as in the identity of a non-Black, speaking to another non-Black person. And while I appreciated someone else's invitation for you to clarify your intention, I don't think you addressed the unintentional impact that this had in Melody, and I'm waiting for that. Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to pause for now.
I'm not 100% sure, without your saying more, I'm not 100% aware of the disappointment. I'm deeply sorry. So I'm not, I guess I'd have to hear more. Like I said, we went around a number of us in terms of how this first series was going to work in terms of people sharing, and so it was difficult for me to try and decide if we should move on or not move on, and so I kind of followed the script that we had, and I'm deeply sorry that you know, I can understand how it felt like I took away from the moment of what was going on. So I'm not sure if, you know, I'm not sure exactly what else to say about that, other than, again, I'm really sorry. There was no, the intention, as I tried to share at the beginning, was that I trust in my own good-heartedness, that I was coming from a good space for this. And if it turned out to be off the wave or offensive or whatever, again, I'm really deeply sorry. And, you know, I'm not really sure what else to say. I don't know if there's, you know, if you want to respond, or is that's.
I can respond, but I also don't want to hold this space. And so I am actually, my intention, my need, should I say, was to take the courage or step up to my own insecurities here and name what I experience. And I'm not actually expecting any repair. There's no need for repair, or it's just that I wanted you to know that I was waiting. And I'm good having said that.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Ling, for having the courage to speak your truth and share. Thank you.
Thank you, Ling.
This is Kathy. What I was hearing was that it's too soon for us to move away from Black Lives Matter and their voices. White woman of privilege, I want to just reflect back that I hear that, and I agree.
So I want to say something else. This is Shalamaya again. I'm just want to say that, like, again, there's like another wave of this discomfort from speaking, like these speaking to these sort of nuanced things that happen that can be sort of dismissive of what's occurring for the group, for the community, for the world. And it's so good that we're not leaving. It's so good that everyone is experiencing whatever it is that they're experiencing, whether they're speaking, whether they're hearing feedback, whether they're witnessing. This is it. This is it. This racism thing is not about anybody's goodness. It's not about your goodness. It's about a training that you don't even realize that you're receiving on a regular basis, that you don't even realize that you're taking into your brain and you are enacting on a daily basis. Nothing to do with your goodness. You're not bad or good for being racist. Necessarily. It's different when we have a consciousness around it, when we're like, yeah, we're gonna do this thing. We're gonna be this thing, you know, but there's so many nuances to this thing. And we're all getting a racist and have gotten a racist education, which is, again, really hard to recognize. Especially, like, I forget who said this, but like if everybody's right-handed, they don't realize when someone's, you know, it's like we're all fishes in water. We don't even realize we're sitting in this water, in this shitty ass water. So.
I'm Rita. I just want to say that I'm not proud because I have been a coward in the past, because I have not been able to sit with the pain of my ex-husband, who was Black, and I was with him for years, and he would suffer so much, and I just could not hold him. I the first thing I did when all this happened, like, I couldn't take it anymore. I hadn't spoken to him in so long, and I told him I was sorry. And I am sorry. And it's not an empty apology. I'm sorry because until now, I have not, I don't know, I just couldn't deal with it. And it's awful. It's like, you know, I have a choice not to deal with it, you know? And I'm happy. It's amazing that you guys are doing this so that I can get to sit and be uncomfortable, and, you know, and I feel like you're still holding us, and I just want to be able to hold you too, you know? So I'm sorry for not, you know, being able to have done it with the people you know, the man I loved, and I want to do better, you know? So I'm just really happy to be here today, and I have so much love in my heart, and that is not enough, you know? That is not enough. I know I'm a very loving person, you know? And my husband knew I loved him. He told me. But you know what? I wasn't uncomfortable with him enough. You know, I just wanted to, like, wish it away. You know, it's like live in this fairyland where I, you know, it didn't matter to me, you know, but I couldn't, I just, you know, I couldn't do it at the time. So I just want to say that I don't know what I want to say. I'm just sharing my experience here with all of you. And I realized this is so important. And I'm grateful to be able to be here today and get to try again, you know? So, yeah. Thank you, everybody, the panel, and everybody here in this space. And the school, too, for putting it together. Holding it. Thank you.
Hey everybody. I'm Regine. I live currently in Los Angeles, but I grew up in Belgium with Tintin in Congo. I don't know if any of you know that book, but it pretty much sums up my upbringing. And so I want to thank everyone who spoke today. I feel deeply, such a deep gratitude. Oh, my heart is going too fast. For all the words I heard. I don't want this to be about me. So I just really want to say thank you. I don't want to get over George. I really want to change and to be a power of the change. And so this panel helps me. It's the first step. I mean, not the first. I've watched a lot of videos, but it's a step and an important one. So thank you for opening up, for being vulnerable. I so deeply appreciate it. And I bow to you. Thank you.
So I'm aware that a number of people need to leave. And so I was wondering, I don't see Patricia, if you would like to present our part two. There you are.
Hi, everybody. So please join us next week. Same time, 3 o'clock to 6. We have 3 speakers. I'm looking for my notes and I can't find them. But we have Suzanne Chelsick, who will be talking about whiteness and racial equity. We have Priya Kandaswamy, who's a professor of race and gender and sexuality, who will be talking to us about the impact of racism on Black communities, including queer and trans communities. And we have Samuel Kimball's, who's a Jungian psychotherapist, who will be talking about race and trauma and what he calls phantom narratives and the way in which racism lives in the cultural and collective psyche. So they'll each be speaking for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then the space is opened up for questions. So I want to see all of you there. And I hope you'll come, and thank you for holding the space, all of you, with all of us. Thank you to all the panelists, Leidine and Melanie and Haruna, and Catherine who came on. Thank you, Lisa, for that email. And then I just want to thank the teachers at the school who have been such allies to me during this process. Haruna and Kai and Kathy Bauer, and new allies that I'm starting to connect with. All of you who shared, thank you. We are members of the community of the Sacred Human Heart. We must find our way to being in a right relationship with each other. We must find our way back to love. We must find our way back to justice and freedom and harmony and balance in the world. We must find our way back to our expansive humanity. Thank you.